Hello from Gardening at Douentza here in Ireland, and this is a Cattleya update for all those of you who've been requesting it. I think this here is a very good place to start because, as you can see, this Cattleya has finally flowered. And this is a primary cross between nobilior and alaorii, which is a miniature one. So I'm very pleased to have this in flower. As I think I already mentioned, alaorii is one that flowers from a sheath, and nobilior is one that flowers from soil level. But this particular cross has flowered from, well, not from a sheath, but from a leaf axil, in the same way that, that many Cattleyas do. And it's quite pretty. 2 flowers, 1 and 2. There's something slightly misshapen about this one here. I'm not quite sure why, but yeah, it's nice. Now, the only thing I don't like about it is that it's quite a substantial plant for only 2 flowers. If we look here, it's quite wide, and yet only 2 flowers hanging down from the side. But it's not one I'm going to chuck out just yet. We're going to give this one a chance and see if it can produce more flowers as it matures. Those of you who've followed my channel for a while will realise that normally what I do with my Cattleyas is I put them out in the greenhouse in summer. And I didn't do that this year. And I think the general result is that my spikes are slower than they normally would be at this time of year. For example, this particular plant here, which is a gorgeous lilac Cattleya. This Cattleya is called Sierra Skies Leone, and you may recall that this was the first Cattleya to flower for me last year, and I'll put a little link to that video up above. But this year it's behind. It has 2 new growths, but no sign of a sheath yet. Well, actually, this one doesn't produce sheaths, it just produces a flower from in there in the axil. But I don't see anything happening just yet. Moving over to beside it, where we have this little Euchile mariae, also in the Cattleya Alliance. And this plant, which flowered last year, as you can see from the spike there, is producing a sheath here this year. So it's all good news for that. Only one, but you know, so it goes. It was repotted this year. And moving over here, we have a bit more good news, because this is a plant that I got about this time last year from Orchids and More in Germany. And this is known as the Christmas Cattleya. Its name is percivaliana, and this is a percivaliana cross. And if we look at the back there, you can see it has a sheath with a very pronounced darkness in it. So this one is going to flower for me. I wonder, will the flower come before Christmas? And over here we have a white Cattleya that's also quite new to my collection. Now, this is one that I bought in Madeira in January this year, when I had the opportunity to visit the fantastic Boa Vista Orchid Nursery in Madeira. And I got this one. It's called, Pastoral Innocence. And I have a sheath and I have a darkness in there. So this one is going to flower for me. Oh, happy days. Now, it's a bit of a lopsided kind of plant, which I tried to remedy by staking it up, but it just wanted to go down again. So in the end, I just settled for putting a clip in it to make sure its roots stayed steady and just let it do what it wants to do. Perhaps after it flowers this year, I'll look at fixing it a bit better. Wandering over to the right here, we have Laelia aurea, which came to me as a mount some time ago from Schwerter. And this plant has done really well since it's been potted up, producing lots of new roots. And at the moment, no sign of a flower spike, but the plant is doing well. So I think this one was 6 months from flowering size when I got it, so it really should be flowering size now, but I don't know what time of year they presumably flower at. And over here we have another species, Laelia. This is perrinii, which I got from the Polish Orchid Nursery this year. And this is the new growth on it, but there's no sign of any sheath in there at all. So, well, that's a bit disappointing, but so it goes. Leaving those plants behind, we must look at the big guy here at the back. And that plant is my Schomburgkia. I'm not sure how to pronounce this. I always get it mixed up with the pronunciation of the Thanksgiving cactus, but sure, there you go. Anyway, this one has been a constant source of consternation to me, because quite early on it produced a sheath, and then that sheath browned and died off. Here's that brown sheath there, and at first I wasn't sure whether this is just what the plant does, maybe it buds through a withered sheath, but actually I think no, I think this one is just gone. But since then, what's happened is the plant has produced very vigorous plant. It's produced other growths, and they have sheaths. There's one there. There's another one down there, and this growth here has a third one, which has a very pronounced darkness inside the sheath. But if we look in here at the first sheath I showed you, I don't know if you can see this, but it is actually splitting open there. Can you see it's splitting open there on the left hand side? So, hopefully, what then happens with this plant is it produces a mammoth, really tall flower spike that goes up and up and up for years and years and years. Well, not years, for meters anyway. Maybe not meters, maybe a meter and a half. But anyway, so after we actually get to that stage, there's a long way to go before I see any flowers, but it's looking positive so far. We've now moved to an isolation room in my house where I've kept a couple of Cattleyas. And loath though I am to mention the F word, i.e. fusarium, these are the ones that I suspected at one stage had fusarium. Right, that's the last time I'm going to mention that. But in any case, I don't think they had at all. In front of you here is the Bob Betts Cattleya that you saw me divide in a previous video, and I'll put a link to that up above. But you'll recall that the division went badly wrong, and I ended up with 3 divisions, one of which was a single pseudobulb division. Now, that one got cut up for investigation and it's gone. This is the 2 pseudobulb division, which is growing well. It's sending up a 3rd shoot here. The one that had 3 pseudobulbs was sent off to my friend, who reports that it is doing very well. And the big piece has a couple of new growths in there. Can you see those 2 healthy growths in there? The other plant that fell victim to my mad frenzy is my favourite Cattleya CG Roebling, which I cut up. I now have 2 pieces left, and the moral of that story is, if a plant is doing well, leave it alone. So this is one of the 2 divisions. This one here has new root tips coming, and even you can see this sheath here has a darkness in there. That's a bud forming. And the second plant here, this one had fewer roots initially when I cut it up, but that also has a sheath with a darkness. So that's the status of my Cattleya CG Roebling and my Cattleya Bob Betts, just for those of you who are asking. So here we are back downstairs again after our little foray into the bathroom, and I've changed the display on the table here just to show you a couple of more plants. And the first one I want to show you is Laeliocattleya, King of Taiwan, which you may recall from last year suffered the fate of blasted buds because I moved the plant when it was in bud. It's a disappointing result this year, and I only have 1 bud so far, one that shot up without a sheath even, and this is a plant that usually produces sheaths. As usual, it's got the purple pseudobulbs that this plant normally gets at this time of year. And yeah, so it's a bit disappointing, possibly because I haven't had this plant in the greenhouse during the summer, so it hasn't been exposed to enough light. So anyway, so moving to the right of it, where we have Laeliocattleya Coastal Sunrise, which flowered not terribly long ago, and since then it's shot up this new growth. Managed to break off one of its growths, unfortunately. down there, and then I divided it and it sent up that new growth. So poor thing has it's been through the wars really. This is the previous growth, which has something of a sheath there, but I think it's more like a double sheath, so I think it's just you know, it's a second leaf that's kind of, yeah, I hope I'll get a flower out of that, and I hope I'll get a flower out of that one down there, but it's all a bit disproportional for the size of the plant. And in front of them is the Cattleya warscewiczii. Apologies to any Polish speakers in the audience there now, because obviously that pronunciation is way off. Sorry, Robert. Yeah, this plant I got from, Anna Maria bought it for me in London from Ecogenera, the Ecuadorian orchid company that was visiting the London show, and she sent it over to me, and obviously it had been moved from Ecuador to England and was bare root, so the plant has suffered a bit along the way. Now when I got it, the eye here had been damaged, but I do see that there's another eye here, dormant eye, that looks to be fine. So I'm really just waiting all the time for this plant to start doing something. I don't see a lot of root activity, but maybe I need to cover it with some moss or something to kind of get it going. Yeah, not doing much really. Let's see what else we have. Just reaching up now to above where I have this encyclia, and I'm going to take this down and show it to you. Here we go. Now this is an encyclia I bought at the French nursery in the summer. There, I think from this angle we can just about make out the sheath. So hopefully, fingers crossed. The name of the nursery I got this from was La Canopée des Orchidées. So that's the video you need to check out if you want to hear more about this. So it's another quick change of the display on the table to show you these few plants. And two of them were ones I bought in England when I went over earlier on in the year from Phoenix Orchids. The large Cattleya bowringiana, or Guarianthe bowringiana, is one of them. And I was always a bit suspicious about this plant because it did come with dark markings. I cut off a couple of pseudobulbs, as we can see, and then the dark markings seem to spring up in the other pseudobulbs. The thing was buried too deeply anyway, so this is one that, you know, it's easy enough to bury it too deep. And what had happened before was that an eye that was trying to break had been buried and had suffered as a result. But anyway, I got these dark markings on it again. And just when I was saying, oh, forget about it, I give up on this plant, I'm going to chuck it out, it started pushing up a new growth. So I've just kind of left it and kept it in isolation, and just kind of watching what it does. It has been sprayed with hydrogen peroxide in case it has bacterial infection, and it's been sprayed for fungal infection as well. So yeah, I don't know. And I got this other Cattleya from the same vendor, which I also isolated and cut off suspect looking bits from the leaves. But it has produced a new growth, smaller than the last. And I thought at first this was a sheath in there, but it's a bit pointy, so I think this is just a second leaf. This is obviously a unifoliate Cattleya, yet it's decided to produce two leaves, as they all do occasionally. The name of this particular one is Newberry Pixie Cherokee. So yeah, we'll see how that one does. And then the other one in isolation that I wanted to show you is this gorgeous little blue angel kiss. Let's not touch this with the same hand I touched the other one. There we go. So this is one I got for my birthday from Orchids and More in Germany. And it came in bud and it flowered beautifully, and there's a video somewhere about it. And then what happened was I was going away on holiday and the plant was potted in sphagnum. So I thought to myself, I'll leave it in the sphagnum while I go away on holiday because, you know, it won't be watered for 2 weeks. So if it's in sphagnum, it'll get extra hydration, it'll be a good thing. But I did notice that there were some snails in it, so I put some snail pellets on top of the sphagnum. And what happened when I was away is, of course, I should have thought about this, really stupid. The slug pellets went mouldy, and that mould spread around the plant. So when I came back, I had to cut off a certain amount of it. You see where I cut it? Now it seems to be okay since then. However, this next pseudobulb doesn't have an available eye, so I'm still waiting to see what will happen and where it will send out a new growth if it does. So that's very unfortunate, because it was a beautiful plant and really deserved a better fate. And the final plant I want to show you in this Cattleya update is this little no ID that I managed to buy in a supermarket a few years ago. I wonder, can we focus on it here? Now, it's had a checkered history and didn't flower for me last year. And I put that down to the bad way that the orchids are kept in this particular supermarket. So I was delighted when I finally got it to flower again this year. But if we look at it close up, can you see those suspect looking markings on the petal? Is that a virus, I wonder? This other one isn't quite open yet, but they look a bit suspect too. So, I mean, this plant didn't flower like this before, so whether it's contracted a virus in the meantime or what, I don't know. I turn it around again. Anyway, let me know what you think. Probably a virus, needs to be kept in isolation and probably binned, which is unfortunate. It's terrible when you actually get something back into flower and then discover some terrible problem like this on it. Disgusted. Okay, so that's everything for the moment. Hope you liked this Cattleya update, and if so, give it the thumbs up down below and check back for, well, when some of these bad boys turn into flowers. Thanks very much for watching. Bye.